Now, for this review, I'm just gonna have a counter for every time I say the word oxygen. Yeah, this'll be fun to edit. Oxygen is written by Jamie Matheson, starring Peter Capaldi as the Doctor, Pearl Mackie as Bill, and Matt Lucas as Nardole. So the episode starts off with astronauts floating in space before their future boots cling onto the ship. The woman one is having a monologue about the delicacy of life, because pretentious foreshadowing was put here, as she later gets axed, and by later I mean a few seconds later. I'm just gonna say the shots of space vary between beautiful to this is clearly shot in a studio. And in Jamie Matheson tradition, we get to see death and the monsters from the start. So we get good dialogue after the title sequence, which I like. After the titles, we see the Doctor lecturing about the vacuum of space and what happens if you are exposed to it, which if you don't have a clue to what happens if you're exposed to the vacuum of space, you're probably too young to watch this video and Doctor Who in general. However, he doesn't just stop at the stereotypical movie thing that happens, that being you freeze to death. He tells the truth. I mean, the truth involves you freezing to death, but it also involves other things. I'm not going to detail it here because this is not an educational video. So then the Doctor procrastinates guarding the vault by going into space, even though Nardole took out the fluid link K57 so the TARDIS cannot leave. Which, duh, obviously it can, because plot. The trio land on a ship we saw earlier. And there is no oxygen. I just thought I'd mention that, no oxygen on the ship, that's fine. So they explore using the TARDIS oxygen bubble. They stumble across a dead body which appears to be standing, but it's just in a suit which is standing because the future boots. I will just say props to the makeup team for giving children across the country nightmare fuel. We learn that he didn't suffocate due to the future oxygen helmet force field thing, so now we have a mystery. Ooh. The Doctor wants to help the 4 remaining survivors. Turns out you have to pay for the oxygen that you breathe, and any foreign oxygen being sucked out into space, which includes the oxygen from the TARDIS safety bubble. Matheson also has this trope where he gets rid of the TARDIS and the sonic screwdriver to make a good plot. I like this, as it allows for the Doctor's victory to be more satisfying than Sonic Ex Machina, and it forces creativity when trying to get the Doctor, Bill, and Nardole out of situations. Also, I like the McCoy era, which did the things that are demonstrated here, essentially. We learn about how spacesuits are the monsters of the week. We also learn about how the ship is filtering out oxygen in order to sell it back to the users, i.e. capitalism, but in space. Space capitalism. I really like this concept because it reminds me of something that Robert Holmes would write. Yes, I'm comparing to Jamie Matheson to the best writer the classic show ever had. Shut up. The only option of survival is if the gang wears the suits. The suits that can kill people. As we can see, tension is building. We then meet the crew. Tasker, Ivan, Abby, and Dahren. We have some scenes tackling racism due to Dahren being blue and Bill referencing thin ice.
Who let this creature in here? On your feet, girl! In the presence of your betters!
Sorry, I just had to use that clip. The Doctor decides to take matters into his own hands while the crew question his authority, which is a running motif in the story. And another Matheson staple. Tasker gets killed and joins the space zombies, which at this point made me realise Jamie Matheson should write a Cyberman story. Think about it. The conversion, the stomping, which, for the record, I do not like in terms of the Cybermen, but don't mind here. Matheson could write a solid New Who Cyberman story. Our characters go outside via airlock, but due to Bill's suit being a malfunctioning one, it decides to take her helmet off. And then Bill gets exposed to the vacuum of space, which would have had me at the edge of my seat if it weren't for the editing. For some reason, when we see the Doctor, the footage looks like it was filmed with shaky cam while the cameraman was having a stroke, and then edited so that it's slower, resulting in a lower frame rate. This scene is the sole reason I cannot give this a 10. I tried to let the obvious studio thing off the hook, but that and this downright stupid piece of recorded media just dented this episode's quality. We find out Bill is alive. Yay! And the suits can't get to them because they are a new unmapped locked area. Also, yay! We find out the Doctor gave Bill his helmet, survived the vacuum of space because Time Lords can do that, and is now blind. Yeah, wait, that isn't a good thing. After another batch of the Doctor being questioned of his authority, he gets threatened by Abby, and then Dahren gets killed by the space zombie people. Oh, that's sad. I really like Dahren. Bill's suit malfunctions again, and she can't move, and has to be left behind. Now, I was at the edge of my seat because I was scared for Bill's life again. People complain about how they pulled our arm twice, about Bill potentially being dead, which, yes, I can see why. I'm just not fussed about this because the episode made me care. The last time an episode of Doctor Who tried to do this was The Magician's Apprentice, where the cliffhanger was Clara getting exterminated. I can't remember my exact reaction, but I know that I didn't care, and I might have laughed. The fact that this episode manages to get me to care about if Bill dies is because of the way that it is done both times, as well as me really enjoying her character from the previous episodes. The bits where she tries to get her mum to respond in her head, as well as the flashbacks to the pictures, were a bit meh, in my opinion. Like the whole life flashing before your eyes thing, like that's apparently the explanation for it, but I just don't simply buy it. But more on Bill later. The Doctor connects everyone's life signs to the cooling system. He tries to convince everyone that they might as well have a good death, when actually he's ensuring that if they do die, it'll be expensive.
As in the ship blows up. Sorry, I didn't mention this before, I forgot.
Seeing how this whole time the crew were inefficient, that the business were having losses keeping them alive, the Doctor made it so that the business would have a much bigger loss if they die. This is a smart resolution, as we've seen hints of the crew being expensive throughout the episode. And it decided to use money in an unconventional way in order to save their lives. So yes, Doctor Who can work without the sonic screwdriver or the TARDIS being used to save the day. I'm looking at you, Frank Cottrell Boyce. I'm looking at you and other people who I'm too lazy to name. So we find out Bill isn't dead, and people seem to be thinking there's a plot hole, but it isn't there. People don't realise why Bill isn't dead, and the rest of the suits killed everyone else. But if you were actually watching the episode, you would understand why. Because the thing is, it's throughout the episode, Bill's suit was malfunctioning, and that's the whole reason her, being exposed to the vacuum of space happened. It's an established recurring element throughout the episode. So it couldn't fully kill her. That was actually said in the actual episode. I just thought I would mention that because it's quite an obvious thing that a lot of people seem to be missing. The space zombies give the survivors their oxygen, and then the TARDIS trio hug before the Doctor's eyes get defrosted by Nardole. The Doctor sends Abby and Ivan to head office for the two to complain about them nearly dying. Yeah, I'd be a bit miffed if my boss sent me to my death. You know, I'd complain. Then Nardole nags the Doctor about his oath, and he's like, "Look at me!" And then the Doctor's like, "No, Nardole, I physically cannot, because I'm still blind." And then the episode ends. So, what did I think about Oxygen? I really enjoyed it. Not as much as Thin Ice or Mummy on the Orient Express, but it's still really good. My only real criticism is the editing, which is annoying. I was getting flashbacks to class, in all honesty. But the chemistry between the Doctor and Nardole are really good. The scene where the Doctor wanted rid of Nardole so him and Bill can go off and have adventures, as well as the door scene, they made me laugh, which is great. However, Nardole sometimes does feel like an afterthought. Not in this episode in particular, which occasionally he does, but in other episodes, he does feel like an afterthought. The pilot comes into mind especially. Time for me to talk about Bill. Although not mentioned in this episode, and somehow not in the relevant reviews, seriously, Nick and Travis, this takes talent. Bill being gay is handled really well, and treated as something normal, which it should, and that's a good thing. We're not being constantly reminded every 5 minutes, and it's not pandering. Also, Bill has a character, which I shouldn't be praising, but after Clara, I kinda have to praise, because seriously, where was her character, other than the episodes that happened to be written by Jamie Matheson? Bill gives a fresh quality to the show, and I honestly love her character at this point in time. I really like Jamie Matheson as a Doctor Who writer, and when I saw which episode he was doing, I basically called dibs. If I didn't, I'd be reviewing the three-parter. The reason why I called dibs is because he's written some amazing work, i.e. Mummy and Flatline. I mean, The Girl Who Died was weak, but I'm blaming that on Moffat as he co-wrote it, and the bad bits are on Moffat's fault, yeah. I hope Matheson returns for the next series, and if he continues like this, he will be the modern Who equivalent of Robert Holmes, as I previously said. Overall, Oxygen is a nice base under siege story, which of course I'm gonna like. Do you see who my second favourite Doctor is? The characters are strong because they have to be, unlike last week, and the concept is top notch. I'm giving Oxygen a 9.9 out of 10, and yes, I know I can't give this a 10 because of the editing. It's painfully bad. And I can't say to myself, I'm giving this a 9.5 out of 10 or a 9.75 out of 10 because it's better than that. It's just, it can't, it really bothers me. If it didn't bother me as much, I'd probably give it a 10 out of 10, but 9.9 seems to be good. So that's it. That's my review done. Truth Amongst the Pope and Missy next week. To start off the three-parter, and Jean-Luc will be reviewing all of it. All three parts. I'm sure that will be fun. And I'll see you guys in the co-review that Travis and I are doing of the finale. I hope you guys enjoy that, and I hope Travis and I enjoy doing it. I'll see you guys next time. Ciao!